Hey everyone, it's Marie here again, and I'm making a card today using this stamp set from Hero Arts. I found this set on sale at Hobby Lobby, and I thought it would be fun to do some layering of inks using my Brutus Monroe surface inks. So I already have one cone all stamped out, and I'm doing the second one. I'm just showing you what these inks look like as you're layering it. So this first stamping is a little bit splotchy, so I'm going to go over and stamp it again. So it's kind of nice to have a MISTI when you're doing this kind of stamping. I do have to say though that even though sometimes the inks look a little bit splotchy at first, they do even out as they soak into the paper and they give you a really nice bright color. So I'm going to put the second layer on this ice cream cone, and I'm using a shade darker or a different color. When you're doing layering, you want to start with your lightest color, because as you build your layers, the darker colors are kind of like the shadows, so you want to put the darker color over the light color so it shows up better. So now I'm just taking and stamping out the ice cream part of these ice cream cones. I'm using a combination of inks that are Brutus Monroe inks, and then I'm also using some Pink and Main inks. Now, Pink and Main has surface inks that are surface inks. They're the same as Brutus Monroe's, only they're in Pink and Main colors. And so I think that some of the blues here and the pinks are from Pink and Main. This blue I'm putting on this last one is Cornflower, I believe, and that one is from Brutus Monroe. Now, since you do use quite a bit of ink when you're doing ink layering, because you're stamping several times and layering the ink, it might be a good idea to go ahead and dry your images so you can move on with your card. Now I'm going to be embossing some sprinkles on top of these inks and on top of these stamped images, and I'm just using Brutus Monroe's embossing ink as well as their gilded embossing powder. So I'm just trying to figure out which way these little sprinkles go on top of the ice cream cone. I'm just going to stamp them and emboss them. Now, Brutus Monroe's embossing powder is really fantastic. It goes on so smoothly when you melt it because it has no wax fillers in it. So it's just embossing powder. You don't get any waxy buildup, or it doesn't dull the shine because you don't have any of that wax in there. So it really does shine when you melt the powder, and I'll show you here with my heat gun. I'm just going to melt these little sprinkles on top of this ice cream cone. And I just love the way it shines. This is my favorite powder, especially the gold. Now I have all of my pieces embossed and cut out, and I'm going to be showing you how I made this background for this card. I've had a few people ask how I did it, so I'm going to recreate this background on my ice cream cone card, and it's going to be the same background, the same process, just going to change some of the colors to have it fit this card. So I'm using some of those Pink and Main surface inks. This is their gray color. I think it's called Cobblestone, and I'm just going to ink blend a little sort of a highlighted area behind where I'm going to put my ice cream cones. So I'm getting a little bit on my foam blending tool, and I'm using a very light hand and just making a circle. And you just want to remember to do it very lightly. You can even tap off some extra of the ink on a scratch paper before bringing it to your card base, just to make sure it's a really light application. You can always add more color to make it darker, but it's kind of hard to take away color. So I'm just kind of going to be working on that. Now I did speed it up a little bit because it takes a little bit of time. So kind of going in between my ink blending and making sure it's going to look good behind my ice cream cones. So I'll bring them back to the card and see how it looks. And just keep doing that until I get a really good ink blend that I'm happy with. And like with stamping too, when you ink blend, sometimes it takes a few minutes for the color to seep into the paper, and it's totally okay. So now I'm going to put some more embossed images behind my ice cream cones like I did with my card that I just showed you there. And I'm going to be using sprinkles because We just need some more sprinkles with these ice cream cones. So I'm again using my embossing ink and my embossing powder, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this background is dry before I emboss. Now if you go and try to emboss where you put that ink and it's still wet, you're just going to get embossing powder sticking to your whole card and not just your stamped images. So it's a good idea to go ahead and dry that ink beforehand before embossing some more images. So again, I'm grabbing my gilded embossing powder and I'm just going to go ahead and emboss those little sprinkles that I stamped on. Just tapping off the excess. And I like to do my embossing over a coffee filter because it's really easy to catch the extra powder. And then I can always just take it and put it back into my jar. Now I'm using some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist, and I'm just going to add some sprinkles to my background. This is a gray color, and the Glimmer Mist has some shimmer in it, some mica, so it's going to give a little bit more sparkle. And I just wanted a color that would match that gray ink. So I'm just putting a very small amount on, and I like to do this over a laminated piece of cardstock because it makes for cleanup really easy. Now I have that splatters all dried, and I'm ready to put my ice cream cones down. I have them with some foam adhesive on the back. My blue one is already adhered, and I'm putting my pink one down. And my pink ice cream cone, my pink ice cream right there, I put a double layer of foam adhesive because I wanted it to kind of overlap the blue ones, and that would be kind of hard to do if they were both the same height. So I have 2 layers of foam adhesive behind my pink one, just so it'll pop up a little bit more. So now my ice cream cones are all adhered down, and I just want to add a few other fun little items to make this card sort of fun and festive. So I'm going to cut a little piece of ribbon here and fold it in half. And I like to do this on some cards and some different embellishment pieces where I take a ribbon and I just staple it in half, and then I can tuck it in behind some of my elements and just have some fun ribbons sticking out. Now you can leave the staple showing or you can hide it. It depends on what look you're going for. On this card, I just decided that I wanted it to be totally hidden behind that pink ice cream cone. So I went ahead and I used some of my Tombow liquid glue and I just glued it down my pink ice cream cone. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my whole card base and put it onto my card with some foam adhesive so it pops up that whole front panel. And it's probably a good idea to do that before you have all of your elements layered on, but I always forget. So I'm just careful as I adhere it down to my card base so that I don't move anything around. And then just to finish it off, it needs a sentiment. So I'm grabbing one of the sentiments from the set and I'm stamping it off first on a piece of scratch paper just to make sure it's going to stamp all right. Since I have this all already mostly assembled, I can't really do it with my MISTI, so I'm just going to hope for the best and use my VersaFine black ink because it's pretty juicy and it really gives you a nice impression whenever you use it. So I'm making sure I hold it there for a little bit to make a good impression for the sentiment. And that is pretty much the card. I did add a few sequins, but hopefully you enjoyed this really look at layering Brutus Monroe surface inks and how to create a fun and really simple background. So thanks so much for watching. I hope I'll catch you next time. Bye.